There are those who will listen to this interview and feel the contents were self-evident. How could anybody not know the challenges of modern parenting? And some may find my questions to be too elementary, too basic. I can imagine some thinking, how did he not know the reality of this? Well, if that's how you feel after listening to the interview, I just want you to know the content of this podcast wasn't necessarily for you, but it was advocating for you. Because there are hundreds of thousands of people out there and thousands who listen to this show for whom this information was new, or at least it's the first time they'd focused on it, really listened and considered what the challenges of modern parenting mean for individuals in our economy, in our society. Maybe for the first time they had a deeper appreciation for the parents that they know in their own life. You'd be surprised how many people, for any number of reasons, from different socioeconomic backgrounds to simply being too busy in their own affairs, don't really stop to think about what modern parenting is like. And the reason it was so important, I thought, to bring this topic to this program is because it is an underlying factor in so many of the megatrends that we cover on this show. We've been talking about demographic evolutions, changes, challenges across the world, especially in Western civilization and westernized worlds, for a long time. And the potential challenges that will cause to the economies that were built on a consistent growth in population and economic systems and governments that are built on young people contributing enough to take care of an aging population, both directly and indirectly through taxes. And those entire systems are now jeopardized because the birth rates have fallen, because populations are aging. And this isn't something that's aspirational that will happen in the future. It has already happened. And the implications of it are still unfolding in front of us. It's also important to note that for anybody in the business community or anybody who's making policy in government, these are issues that you're going to have to face as an employer or as people with constituents who are seeking different answers to modern challenges. So there's a couple of quick points that I want to make as we wrap up the show today. Number one, I do think we covered in the interview the concept of it takes a village. One of the reasons that it seems like more parents feel more alone, despite all the connectivity of modern social media and modern technology, is simply because the idea of it takes a village to raise a kid, that an entire community comes together, has faded into some levels of individualism where we view the parent next door as not somebody we're accountable or responsible for. We leave them on their own, not necessarily for a negative reason, not even because we don't care, but there is a sense in the society that we should just leave people alone, that they don't need help, they don't want help, and it'd be rude to ask them if they do. I think it's important that mindset begin to shift, because the reality is no matter how good of a parent anybody may be, everybody could use some help. And communities are stronger when they rally around and protect their young. This is true throughout all animal groups in society, in the world, in the ecosystem of the world, in the environment. And it is true of humans as well. And so it's important not to think of parenting just as an individual expression, but as a group exercise for an entire family, multi-generations, and for an entire community, even those who didn't have children themselves, for any number of reasons, they still have their own obligations and their own responsibilities in their community to those who do have kids. And they can contribute in any number of ways, from helping out the parents in their life to being teachers, being coaches, being volunteers, being mentors. Everybody has a role in developing the next generation, even in the workplace. Now, at a more foundational level, our economies and our societies have evolved in a way that we really can't afford to have any able-bodied working person not contributing in one way or another to our economies in formal ways where they are paid in exchange for their labor and hours or even for their ideas. The economy has evolved around the world in such a way that Women are now, in many cases, more highly educated and skilled than men, either equal to or greater than, which means any woman who feels like they can't afford to work, as we talked about in the interview today, they are focusing on their parental duties, but because they're pulling back their contributions in the workplace, in the formal economy, all of society suffers for that. And if you're an employer, if you are a policymaker, if you are somebody who's growing a business or worried about the future of your city, your state, your town, your county, this is important to understand. If you think AI is going to save you because the productivity gains will allow you to get away with fewer workers and that will make up the gap of the missing parents in the workforce, I think you've got a lot of expectation overload. AI will be helpful. It will allow for a productivity gain and boom, but it probably will not be able to create productivity as fast as the workforce losses due to demographic changes. We're going to need a ton of productivity gains from every individual remaining in the workforce, working age individuals, to contribute enough for the huge challenges that come with an aging population. It's also important to note that this is not an optional issue of supporting parents. It is a requirement. It is a necessity for the continuity of countries and societies and economies. This is not an issue that can be kicked down the road or put off. And we can't afford to have ideas about it's always been hard to parent, have people get over it. You know, they'll find their way through it like everybody else did. Well, to some degree, that may be true, but if we have large numbers of people who fundamentally feel that they not only have to choose between their professional and their parental life, but that they have no choice but to leave the workforce just so they can raise a family, it is going to have serious negative effects that are immeasurable at every level of society and will affect everyone. So for those who are in policy-making positions, for those who want to hire a workforce and want to grow as an employer, who believe that this question of how to support parents is still an optional nice to have, I hope today's episode helps to shake you into the reality that it's not a nice to have. It's a requirement. It's a necessity. Answering the questions of supporting parents in the modern era. And this is not to say that this is a government-led or public policy-led answer. All of society has to come together to answer this. All of us have a role in answering the call. And it's not simply just having and raising your own kids. Importantly, it's about how do you help and how do you contribute to society as a whole by helping all the kids who are already there. I also think it's important that those in policy positions make this a priority and understand it's a competitive advantage. For businesses that can figure out this balance to support the parents of today, you are going to get some of the most skilled, talented labor that the market has to offer. You will be able to have those folks stay with you through the challenging years of their lives. And as those kids get older and they're able to focus even more of their efforts on their professional endeavors, you will gain the benefits of having had them all along. That becomes a competitive advantage in an environment where productivity is important. And the more experience that you have from the people, the better use you can make of the technology that's making everything a little bit easier and a little bit better. Now, I know this is a topic that will draw a lot of interest and a lot of conversation and response, and I welcome it. But I want to clarify, today's show is not about parenting tips or advice. My commentary segment is not about advocating for any specific public policy solution. It is to simply raise awareness of the everyday decisions that parents feel like they have to make, and to extrapolate from that what those implications and how serious those implications can be for every other trend that we cover, every other mega trend that there is is affected by this fundamental issue.